In today's video, let's talk about how the Steam Deck finally gives us the power to defeat our biggest PC gaming enemy, the backlog. How's it going, everyone? It's me, Jimmy Champagne, and yes, every time I get new subscribers or new people here on the channel, they're like, is that your real name? Yes, it is my real name, James Champagne. There's no G in it. It's spelled exactly like the drink without the G. I didn't make up a stage name or anything like that. It's real. But yeah, getting back on track here, instead of covering 3 news stories that I found throughout the internet, for today's video, I wanted to talk about this really interesting interview with an analyst named Chris Zukowski that I read over on PC Gamer that's breaking down why Steam has kind of cracked the code on getting people to spend basically all of their disposable income on PC games, whether or not they're ever going to play them. I'll let you guys know up front, this guy's a straight shooter. It seems like he's firing right from the hip, and I respect that, but I just wanted to warn you that he's using a little bit of an inflammatory tone when he's talking about us Steam gamers. The title of the article is "Knowing Steam Players Are Hoarders Explains Why You Give Valve That 30%. You get access to a bunch of drunken sailors who spend money irresponsibly." And man, I feel called out here because yeah, over the years since I started my Steam account in high school, I have bought a lot of games that I have the full intention of eventually getting to, but you know, they slip through the cracks, and we'll talk about how that's been fixed a little bit later in the video. This guy again is named Chris Zukowski. He's a business analyst, and let's get into what he's saying about Steam. He says the amazing thing about Steam and its player base is that they buy games they aren't going to play. More than likely, the person buying your game is not going to play it. Now, I know Valve is like a huge corporation, but like if you look at the landscape of like Sony, EA, Ubisoft, Nintendo, Microsoft, I think if you rank them all by consumer friendliness, Valve would be pretty close to, if not at the top, because I think a key difference between Valve and other corporations in the games industry is that it's very clear that people who work at Valve actually play video games. There's this whole phenomenon going on where corporations have evolved to the point where you can just slot in someone as a CEO whether they know about the product or not. I know this is a heavy topic, but we all know there's big problems with Boeing that have been cropping up over the past couple of years or so, and I was reading into why, and a lot of people theorize that before the new CEO took over, the guy who was running Boeing absolutely loved planes from top to bottom. He knew everything about planes. He wanted to make planes as good as they can be. Then the new guy who took over is a really good business-minded CEO, but like just being blunt here, he could not give two about planes. And when you're just looking at the numbers going up and down on paper, how to maximize profits, that's when you let the little things slip, and that's probably a big factor as to why Boeing is not doing as hot right now as they were over the past few, I don't know, decades. So when you have a company like Valve that's privately owned, it's got a small headcount, they make games that they want to play, they focus test the hell out of their games before they ever reach public eyes, you ultimately end up with a product that becomes the perfect storm of being consumer friendly while also maybe being too good at putting games you want to play in front of your eyes, right? Like there's the discovery queue. It looks at what games you buy, it looks at what games you spend time on Steam, and it says, hey, we found a bunch of games in our millions and millions of games that we have up for sale that look like they'd be interesting to you. And I'm just going to be real, a lot of times the discovery queue is right. Then we've all been in the situation where, you know, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, you get a video served to you about this survival game that you've never heard of that looks absolutely phenomenal. It just happened to me with an open world zombie game called Surround Dead that looks awesome. It's like low poly, sort of like that BattleBit remastered game, but it has really nice graphics and it looks like a really cool action RPG. But I'm playing Zomboid right now. I'm playing Zero Siva right now. I am deep in Elden Ring. I just beat Liurnia of the Lakes and the Academy and everything. So I add it to my wish list. And then there's the third factor, which is the Steam sales. They have multiple sales throughout the year. And when the Steam sale starts, you get an email that's like, these games on your wish list are on sale. So the more your wish list builds up, the more emails you get. And a lot of those games that I was like interested in playing at one point or eventually down the line, I have this urge to buy them when they're on sale because, you know, I'm gonna buy them anyway and they're at a discount, and who cares if it's going to be even more discounted by the time I actually get around to playing it, if I even do get around to playing it. So I end up buying a lot of cheap indie games that are on sale. And I think Zukowski hits the nail on the head when he talks about why a lot of us on Steam have that mentality. Like, I know there's people out there who are really good with their money. They only buy games if they are fully willing to play them to completion, and they buy them one at a time. Let's be real, the vast majority of us are what I just mentioned, which are people who have all these different reasons as to why they buy games they might not even play at all. Zukowski says Valve cracked the problem that Netflix was struggling with. How do you sell to people who have so much entertainment at their fingertips they don't have enough hours in the day to play or watch it all? Valve basically added infinite hours to the gamer's day. It's a theoretical future day where gamers might someday spend hours playing your game, but let's be honest, won't. And I think he's right to a certain extent, but I think he's also being a little too cynical about it. I've been in this situation where I'm currently playing a game and then I see a movie that gets me thinking about Resident Evil 7, which is a game that I owned on PS4 and PS5. So I want to play that game again. And I'm like, well, if I buy it on PC, I can play a brand new save and it'll be like I'm playing it for the first time. I might not get to it right now, but it's really cheap. It's like $10 for the entire experience. I'll just add it to my Steam account to support Capcom and let them know to continue making PC ports. And then when I get around to it eventually, I'll have it in my library, and it might not be on sale when I get to it, so I may as well just buy it. That whole mentality gets that ball rolling where, like, yeah, maybe today you're really busy. Like, I got up, I went to the gym, I had lunch, I started working, and then suddenly it's 9 p.m. But tomorrow's Friday. I usually work less on Friday, so even though I already have my game time basically filled up by Elden Ring, sitting on Discord talking to my brother while I play, I could squeeze in some time before I go to bed playing Zero Sievert, so why not buy it just in case I have more time in the day later in the week? But when you have a job, when you have a schedule, it always plays out the same way. Your time, no matter what, your brain kind of formats your day exactly how it is the day before, because your brain likes patterns and it likes predictability and it likes systems and everything to just work how it works. And that's what makes days go a lot faster. So mixing things up is really good for making days seem longer. Your brain kind of does this good job of tricking you into thinking you're going to have more time in the future, while it's also in the background working overtime to keep your schedule going the way it wants it to. And I think a huge difference between something like Steam and something like Netflix that Zukowski is not grasping here is that Netflix's quality has gone down massively over the past 5 or 6 years. Like, it all started in 2019 when they got more algorithmically based. Like, if you have multiple profiles on your Netflix, check your Netflix and then check your parents' Netflix. Yours might be the most high quality stuff they have available, which is not very good, but even that is a lot better than the stuff they're serving your parents, which is usually like dubbed action movies from South America with lots of guns and killing, like 80s style movies for your dad, or romantic Dallas style shows for your mom. Like, it does a whole overhaul of the categories, the art, it'll change the thumbnails for its shows to be more in line with what it thinks you're going to want to watch. Whereas Steam, its whole system is built on finding good games to sell you based on what you're interested in. It doesn't give you a bunch of chaff. It gives you the best of the best, and it kind of filters down the highest quality stuff. So I think Steam solved the problem through quality much more than it did having infinite options of games to throw your way, because people in the games industry on our side, the people who play games, are a lot more discerning about what they spend their money on. Like, most people these days, where money is tight because of how everything is right now, you're looking for the cream of the crop, the best of the best. You're way less willing than you have been in the past, I would say, because I am, to spend money on games you've never heard of before. Unless you're on Steam and you see a brand new indie game and you get that warm fuzzy feeling where you're like, oh, I want to support this dev. The game's only $15, and AAA games are a dime a dozen. They're all doing the same stuff. They're big checkbox open world games. This indie game might have a new mechanic or new idea that I haven't seen before. And then all of that talk I just said about being more, selective about what you're going to spend your money on kind of just goes right out the window, because, it's only $10, and then 5 games later, you've spent the same amount you would have on a game that's 3 or 4 months old that was $70 at launch. You know what I'm saying? And Zukowski does touch on this when he says the reason Steam makes indies so much money compared to all the other platforms is that they've built up an audience that is full of super diehard hobbyists. Basically, hobbyists buy stuff not because they actually want to consume it, but because they are collecting it. And the collection aspect to Steam really just hit me right in the chest, man. Like, it totally feels like you're collecting games, sort of like digital Pokemon cards when you're on Steam. I don't know what's so different about Steam compared to something like the PlayStation Network, but I think a huge factor there is that Steam is old. I've had it since high school, and I'll never forget when I boot camped Windows 7 onto my MacBook Pro I bought for college, and I was like, whoa. Half-Life 2 is 99 cents. The orange box itself is $5. Portal 2 is about to come out. I mean, Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 are right there and they're super cheap. And I talk about this all the time on the channel, but I just think it's cool that even though it's a digital game and all we hear about is digital games being taken away or getting shut down, I can still play that copy of Left 4 Dead 2 I bought the first day I logged into Steam around Halloween that year, here like in 2025, and it's amazing. And I'm definitely calling a lot of you guys out with this because I added around 200 of you who requested to be friends with me on Steam. My name's Random Hero 1270 if you want to add me there. I looked through your libraries. A lot of you are very similar to me in the sense that you own over 600 games. I think I'm at like 900 games, and I think Zakowski's looking at this from a 10,000 foot up perspective where he's assigning malice kind of to Valve, saying they don't care whether or not you play games. But going back to what I said earlier in the video, I think they want you to play games because games are awesome, and I feel like that's a huge reason why they made the Steam Deck. It kind of solves all of the issues I was just talking about, because it's a lot different to just hit the power button on your Steam Deck and jump right back into a game you were playing last night before you went to bed than it is walking down here into the basement, booting up my entire PC, closing out all my background programs, going into game mode so I can use my controller to pull up the menu in Steam, booting up an entire game. Like, we've all been there where you work a whole day and all you can think about while you're at your desk is that checkbox you're going to check off in Elden Ring when you get back onto it later that night. You have dinner, you clean up your counter, you do all the chores and stuff that you do after work, then it's 9 o'clock and you know your bedtime's midnight, but you have 2 hours and you just sit there staring at your computer trying to figure out if you can even muster the energy to play. I can tell you firsthand, I go through that all the time, and if I'm going through it being a YouTuber who makes videos about the Steam Deck, I know people who work normal jobs are going through it, because even when I got out of college and I was working IT at a chemical company, I had that issue as well. And ever since I got the Steam Deck, I have not really had that problem. Like, it solves so many issues mentally for getting over the hurdle of playing games, because if I don't want to come down here in the basement, boot up my PC, I can sit down next to my wife on the couch while she's watching Love Island and play Zero Sievert. And I have headphones if I want to hear the sound. I got the SteelSeries Artist buds and they have a little USB-C dongle that makes them latency free. I just pop one of those earbuds in and I get all of the sound. I literally did it last night when I was fighting Commander O'Neill for around 2 or 3 hours, and it was the first time I had trouble in this game, man. Like, I've been flying through Elden Ring, having no trouble with any bosses. Hold L to do square off, hit R1 to do the uppercut, hit R2 to do the running stab. It has carried me through the entire game. Then I go up against a boss who's got 4 little ads that hit like a truck, and I'm spending an hour or 2 beating my head against the wall. How I eventually beat him was I used a rune arc and Godfrey's soul, and I whooped the shit out of him before he even had the opportunity to buff his guys. But that was a great experience that I wouldn't have had if my only option to play that game was using my dedicated gaming PC. I've definitely noticed a trend more in terms of console versus PC over the past generation for sure, where the relationship between gamer and publisher has really become very lopsided, whereas on PC it's very symbiotic. Like, we are giving Valve our money to play PC games, and Valve is constantly working to make the act of playing PC games as simple, seamless, and fun and easy as possible so you actually play your games. Because I think they understand that if they don't do that, people are going to start to build resentment in the background, and once you start building resentment towards a company, it's very hard to switch people back to their fandom mode where they're supporting the company in everything they do. I know Microsoft's doing some really cool stuff with Windows and their Xbox full screen experience, and that should be something that everyone is praising. But when they're shutting down studios, laying off people, not getting games out the door within a reasonable time frame, all of that chip damage adds up and it builds resentment in their core fandom. So those people start to leave. They give in, they buy a PS5 or PS5 Pro, maybe they build a gaming PC like they've always wanted to interact with Game Pass on, on because Xbox's console has a stank around it. So I think Valve understands that that is a material thing that can happen. And once you've dug that hole, it is very, very hard to climb out of it. So they're being proactive about not ever picking up the shovel in the first place. They're spending their time, energy, and money in the right places to make sure that the one big storefront on PC that people use to buy and play video games is the best it can possibly be, because no matter what, there's going to be competition popping up. We've seen it multiple times over the past few decades where, you know, EA made Origin to try and be a storefront to combat Valve. It got stomped and it had to come crawling back to Steam after removing their games from it. Ubisoft stopped selling their games on Steam around the middle of the PS4 generation, I want to say, and they came crawling back because no one liked buying games on Uplay. Epic Game Store put up the biggest fight yet by having a storefront that has Fortnite because it's not on Steam, Fortnite being the biggest game ever during the whole lockdown situation. And then on top of that, they gave away hundreds of free AAA, indie, and AA games that were high quality, and a lot of them were new. There were some that were pretty close to brand new that ended up on that storefront. So they really tried their best to get people to play on the Epic Game Store, but the general sentiment from PC gamers around Epic at large, there's some people who really do enjoy playing free Epic games, and I don't blame you, but that sentiment is that a game is not fully released on PC or released at all in the first place until it comes to Steam. Like when games release on Epic exclusively the first year they're out, PC gamers don't even acknowledge their existence. So if Epic Games can't figure it out, that just shows that Valve is really doing something right because people have actual loyalty to the platform. Valve has a lot of pressure on their backs right now to continue doing things right, and I think they really need to work hard to guarantee that things keep going the way they are into the future, man. Like, it's awesome that we have the Steam Deck, it's awesome that we have this storefront, but all of that could change if Gabe retires and the person who replaces him as the leader of Valve comes in and makes some huge sweeping changes. It's good that they don't have a huge board of shareholders. It's good that they're a private company because he can literally hand select the person that replaces him, but that's a lot of pressure. You got to find the correct person that will either just keep things going the way they've been going forever or keep going down the path you're going towards in terms of consumer friendliness and just providing a great product. So when it comes to fixing the backlog, I could not be more confident in my statement that the Steam Deck was the key, the solution, the whatever, the Excalibur to the darkness of buying a ton of games and never playing them. It's awesome that since the Steam Deck came out in the past 3 years, I've not only played more games from my backlog, but completed more games from my backlog than I have in the decades that led up to the Steam Deck releasing. And that's mainly because it's so damn simple to just jump into a game. I know there's issues with anti-cheat. I know there's issues with Unreal Engine 5, but you know, there's more hardware coming. They've done a good job with Proton and getting more developers to release boutique patches for the Steam Deck. If those are the biggest problems we have to deal with on the Steam Deck, and they're not things like the storefront locking down, having to worry about compatibility going forward, games being taken out of our libraries, I think we've got it pretty good right now and things can only improve in the future. But what do you think? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below about whether or not you have a massive backlog of games that you have not played, or if you're like me and getting a Steam Deck kind of let you chip away at the massive backlog you've been building since you started your Steam account and started no doubt buying a ton of games that you fully intended to play but might not ever get around to. Anyway guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.